Hello there YouTube, I am Wheelchair21, and on today's rolling review, we are unfortunately looking at the Power Morphicon exclusive Legacy Collection Lord Drakkon. Now, the reason I'm saying unfortunately looking at it is I chose to review this only because I've heard every other person say theirs has terrible quality, and I just wanted to see how mine turned out. So, first off, we have an elegant exterior cardboard box that protects the main box. We have Drakkon sitting on his throne, but it's kind of shadowed out with all this mysticism and grayscale kind of effect. We have a nice little holographic sticker saying, "You've got the power, 25 years. The official Power Morphicon sticker down here. I'm not gonna lie, I really do love like a lot of the emboss and holographicness about like at least the word Lord Drakkon. This one is more of a smoke greenish grayscale. I don't even think it's coming up on the damn camera. Has a little bit of a embossed gloss to it. And the back, we have a shot of the figure telling us the story thus far, and even telling people that Lord Drakkon is from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 9 in Boom Studios Comics. That's good if you haven't been reading. So, once we slide this puppy off, which I might need to use both hands for, not gonna lie, we have our Lord Drakkon using the Legacy version 2 boxes, where instead of having a weird little curve at the top, we now have a flat rectangular box. Honestly, from just the display purposes alone, I really just do love the overall style for the box. I really do love this figure by presentation alone. There are some nitpicks I do have about the figure itself, but we'll wait till we get it out of the actual box to point it out. One thing, though, I do wish there was actually the Boom Studios logo rather than the vintage Mighty Morphin Power Rangers logo, only just because, even though he is a Mighty Morphin character by Legacy, I feel like it should have been, you know, Boom Studios Mighty Morphin Power Rangers logo or whatnot, and then on the back, another shot of your overall figure. So overall, I gotta say, packaging-wise, pretty stellar. But let's get this puppy opened and see how the figure is. Upon opening the Legacy Collection Lord Drakkon, I'm proud to say that it only has one of the fatal flaws that this figure has had throughout several of the reviews and critiques thus far. The biggest concern that people are addressing, if you don't already know, is the ab is too loose. This joint here is one of the loosest ab joints I have gotten from Bandai America's Legacy Collection. Now, there are other figures out there that are almost as loose and as smooth as this, but not to this dexterity for it being a, you know, limited convention exclusive figure. One would expect tighter joints on this item. However, one could also argue with the fact that most of this body is basically remolded and retooled from all the previous figures released thus far, specifically Green Ranger and White Ranger. It could just be the excuse of mold degradation. However, there are a few pieces that do stand out as being a different piece altogether, like the boots having cool cufflings, and the arms having the cool iconic green and gold cufflings. These things stand out. There is no actual boot rotation. All you have is an ankle swivel joint and your basic ball joint wrist. That doesn't really change too much between the molds too much, even though, like I said, you're missing a whole swivel I think that other figures have had thus far. And there are a bit of loose, wavy hips, but I don't think they're as bad as they ought to be. One of the things that does stand out is due to how the belt is painted and designed. It looks more like a communicator band strap than the actual just pinstripe belt that he has in the comics, but I do like that effect that it looks kind of like a communicator band than an overall just pinstripe throughout the entire torso, or should I say the entire belt. And like I said, I do like these little added areas here on the overall design and the overall giant dragon armor. I think the hip, or I shouldn't say the hip, the ab crunch wouldn't be as bad and uncontrollable if this wasn't as hard plastic as it is compared to the regular dragon armor or the White Ranger armor. Like, with this being more hard molded plastic, it does add a little bit of weight to make it more noticeable and wear down the ab if there is any crunch there to begin with. And you do have a waist articulation. And then with the helmet's pretty spot on. My only main nitpick is that in the illustrations, there's always like a nice black wash, menacing kind of blackness or scar to the overall red visor that makes it look, you know, just like he's evil, super evil, badass, and just someone you don't want to mess with. Whereas, since it's supposed to be leaping off the screen, it has the more vibrant colors, or out of the comic book, it has very vibrant colors and gives it a more cartoony kind of twist and look about it, mostly with the bright gold and the basic blood red visor. Like, honestly, if you toned down a bit of the colors a bit and gave it a little bit more of a blackwash effect, I think it would look way more freaking menacing. But overall, it just has a nice design with a few fatal flaws that Bandai could have worked on. But since they're almost out of the picture and it's moving on to Hasbro, they said, why should we care and why should we really bother? Now, before moving on with the final evaluation, let's quickly just look at the accessory of the Saba, where the Dragon Dagger doesn't change too much between the retail Green Ranger and Drakkon. Saba actually does. Saba has a nice brighter gold that matches Drakkon's look and scheme, but he actually loses the actual grainy feature of the back of the blade, and his head just looks a little bit more narrow and a little bit more, I guess, molded and sculpted, even though they're practically the same mold. It just looks slightly different than when you compare it to the retail release, which has a basic gold color scheme, which is very vibrant, or I shouldn't say vibrant, but very matte, and fits the original Kiba Ranger suit from Die Ranger. The head looks a little bit bigger, or at least the eyes are a little bit more painted in, so they don't look as beady as the Drakkon release. And you also have the added grain on the back of the sword that it's heavily missing in this version. I don't know why it's missing between the two versions, but honestly, I do like that there is subtle differences between the two. If I had to choose one, I'd actually choose the retail release over the convention exclusive version, only because this one actually fits the color scheme more accurately, as well as features the more protruding detail of the blade itself. It's one thing that I'm a huge stickler about, due to the fact that, honestly, Byakko Shinken, or Saba, is one awesome little accessory and weapon in the show that is very underutilized in Power Rangers. It's evaluation time, and for my final evaluation, the Power Morphicon convention exclusive Legacy Collection Lord Drakkon is kind of underwhelming due to the fact that for being a $50 made-to-order limited edition item, Bandai of America really cheaped out on us at the last minute. This has nothing to do with Power Morphicon themselves. This all falls on Bandai of America. For being a convention exclusive, to have quality errors throughout your figures, whether it be loose joints throughout the entire lower abdomen, the abdomen itself, the arms, and whatnot, is really a giant FU. We understand you guys lost the license to Hasbro, but for this being one of your last big items that fans really did want, it is one of those things where it makes people just want to go and keep it in package rather than opening up and making it a display piece. While it did turn out well on paint apps and sculpting wise, overall as a figure, it's iffy. I've had several issues trying to get it to stay in that pose on my turntable for like 3 minutes, maybe 5, and it does show that Bandai of America really didn't care. Scott Zillner did care enough to try to get this figure made and got it made. That it's one of those things where it's like, it levels itself out, but at the same time, as a true figure collector, it makes it feel like both parties couldn't come to an agreement. Honestly, though, for being a one-of-a-kind kind of item, there's only probably a couple of thousand out there, maybe like 10,000 of these made. It's good to know that we at least got something for now until Hasbro decides to pick up the slack and not just give us Drakkon in his original form, but in his second and third forms from the Shattered Grid comic. So like I said, for $50, it feels like it could have been a whole lot better, but at the same time, it's neither here or there at this point now, and I'm just glad to have it on my shelf. Anyways, I'm Wheelchair21, and if you've enjoyed this review or enjoy Lord Drakkon, leave a like and subscribe, as well as follow me on Twitter, over on Instagram, and at my website, HeroClub.com. I'll see you all next time with more rolling reviews and or Doyle's DVDs.